Welcome dear students. In the current session, we would deal with a sample text to see the morphological and phonological features of Middle English. I hope by the end of this session, you would be able to identify Middle English language with particular focus on the phonological as well as the morphological features. Here on the screen, my dear students, you see a text. I have identified certain things in this text in red color. Now I am encircling them for you as well. Notice how, the writing of these words is done. Notice how the spellings are used. And of course, there are so many other words. For example, everywhere you would see these kind of words. But, what you need to notice is certain, features of language are at work. For example, when it comes to the phonological aspects, the sounds, the pronunciation, what you need to notice is this one, for example. After. That is after. So, notice this one. How very different. Notice how, morphological features are at work. Nights and days. What has happened? The way the words are pronounced, they are given the spellings according to those phonological features. So, the morphological features and the phonological features, they go together in this text. If felt like that, we'd come back to this text to see certain features, but I would like to have a look at its translation because that would familiarize you with it and you would be in a better position to identify the phonological as well as morphological features. So, here is the translation of the text for you. When the castles were made, then filled they them with devils and evil men. Then seized they the people that they believed possessed any property by day and by night, both men and women, and put them in prison. When we'd go back, we'd see how the word prison was written, and tortured them with indescribable torments in order to get gold and silver. For never were martyrs so tortured as they were. I hope now that you have gone through the modern English version of this, it would be easier for you to understand certain features. So let's go back to the previous slide. Here see all this once again with a better understanding of all this. This is prison. It was prison. Home. Gold and silver. Notice how this verb is presented here. Notice, however, that there are certain features of the walls. For example, what is this? Else. So, there are certain features of the phonology and the morphology of Middle English that is a continuation of the Old English, whereas certain features are those that were developed during the Middle English period. However, as a matter of fact, this is not a very easy kind of a text to read because, the text is slightly from the early part of the Middle English period, not from the later part. From the second half, if we take a text that is comparatively easier to read, but with the help of identification of certain features, the job is already half done. Here you would see a continuation of the same text But this time, before I, mark certain things on this, given text, that is a continuation of that, I'll share with you the translation of this text so that you could understand what does it mean, and then we would try to see certain features. Here goes the translation. They, which means one, hanged them up by the feet and smoked them with foul smoke. They hanged them by the thumbs or by the head, and hung mail coats on their feet. They put knotted cord about their heads and tightened it so that it entered the brains. So, the whole details of the torture that he was talking about, in the previous part of the text is given now in this part of the text. Have a quick look at the text now. Hanged. Hanged it was. By, notice the morphological aspects of it. Notice how by the I sound is represented. Feet was fit. And smoked them with full smoke. This is with. Full smoke, again, it does not have the usual double consonant after the vowel as we have in modern English. That is one, hanged by the thumbs. Now this could be used for t sound or for th sound. So this is thumbs. Other by the feet. Now this was a dialectical aspect of that, this addition of her before it, and feet is feet. And hengen, please notice the end addition of en. Again, that was the impact of the the dialect from where it comes. Brings on her feet. Did knotted. This particular sign in Middle English stood for both the sounds k and s sounds. So for producing k, this sign would be used. For producing s, this sign would be used. So knotted strings about here had, and notice the use of the vowels throughout the text. That it got to, that is got to. Can you identify this word? This is brains, by the way. So, the orthography of the passage still shows the influence of Old English, a lot of influence, because this text is taken from the early part of the Middle Ages, not from the later part of the Middle Ages. So, in the process of scribing this, the scribers have used the scribal tradition of, as they would listen to it through their ear, they would, or as they would produce it through their tongue, they would just write it like that. I have already pointed out these sounds for you. And this one more sound, sh. The word that was used, Scott, as we would read it now. But actually it was short, because this sign would be used for producing this sound that is now represented by S and H. Here is another part of the text. You may pause on this part of the slide and you can practice through it by looking at, certain features here that I have identified from the text that you have already seen. Here are the features, the devils that you have seen, in the first part of the extract, in the same way how, the plural endings are used, how, vowel in this both is different when, it was used earlier. Now it is both. Old English is still represented by this in the sample text and not by this. You have noticed instead of more, it is written as, this one. Presumably this was because the change of this particular sign to this particular sound and sign had not yet taken place in the early part of this Middle English period in the East Midland, from where, the text is taken. From the nouns, the normal plural in the passage is by adding this, plurals would be made. And in several words, this is used where in, Old English there was a different one. For example, these ones. So es would be used. So overall, this had the Old English plural forms that are used, in the text. However, one plural ending n, as we nowadays use, for example, in oxen, but we do not use it in other words, is used in this text. This is the example from the text. Saints, the words in the text go, hooligans, saints, from, the word again is from Old English, hooligan, again, you need to notice this part of the word. So I hope this, examination of the text would help you understand what were the main features of the phonology and morphology of Middle English language.